The fall batch of anime is going to start up soon, and you need to know what to watch. From major sequels, hyped up new series, or possible hidden gems, these are some of the most anticipated shows for the upcoming season. Before we begin rattling them all off, please drop a like and subscribe so your most hyped show turns out good. Now then, let's begin. First, we'll get into the sequels of shows I haven't watched but you should probably know are about to air, and the first one is ReZero Season 3, which is the third season of the mega popular isekai series, which returns after nearly 4 whole years. You don't know the basic premise: a man gets transported to a fantasy world, and he has the ability to return from death, so once he dies, he revives a bit into the past. White Fox is still at the helm, and the season will consist of 16 episodes split into 2 arcs, first the attack arc, and then the counter-attack arc. The next big show, we see Blue Lock Season 2, the second season of the mega popular soccer franchise, and it returns after 2 years with APEC coming back to animate it. The basic premise sees Japan trying to find a striker good enough to win them the World Cup. I'm guessing from the official title, they're going to play against the Japan U20 team, and that's what we should expect in this season. Another isekai returns with Spirit Chronicles Season 2. It's a fantasy isekai series. TMS is still in charge of it. I don't know too much about the series. I know Sea-Dog voice acted in it, so maybe he returns, we shall see. The isekais keep on coming, with Arifureta Season 3, which sees the series return after nearly 2 years. It's still being done by Studio Azred, and it's another fantasy isekai series that will last 16 episodes. The recent run of Bleach anime comes back, as it's covering the third part of the 1000-Year Blood War arc. Studio Perio is still in charge. I don't know much about Bleach, but fans seem to really like these seasons, so if you're into the series and you haven't caught up, you really should do so. One of the more consistent series over the past few years, we see Danmachi return for a 5th season, also known as Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? A fantasy series by JC Staff, however, a fantasy that's not an isekai, so it stands out a bit from the show so far. After 1 year, we see Shangri La Frontier return, a fantasy action series that takes place in a virtual reality world, and C2C is still animating the show. A Sword Art Online spin-off comes in next, as Gun Gale comes in for a second season 6 years after season 1. It takes place in the game Gun Gale Online within the universe, and A1 Pictures takes up animating the spin-off series after Studio 3 Hertz did the prior season. Next, we see Blue Exorcist continue after an earlier batch of episodes in the winter of this year. The Jump action series covers the Beyond the Snow saga, and Studio Volan still animates. The legendary shonen franchise Dragon Ball returns with Dragon Ball Daima. I don't know too much about the franchise, but this iteration seems to be following the characters with a more chibi art style, and Toei and A1 look to be taking the helm based on the show's wiki page. The highly rated slice of life series Natsume's Book of Friends returns after nearly 7 years for its 7th season. However, after all these years, Shuka is still the one animating the show. The Love Live franchise returns for another anime this year with Love Live Superstar Season 3 continuing the Superstar series. It comes just over 2 years after Season 2, and Sunrise continues to animate the show. And the last sequel I'm going to talk about is Beastars Season 3, which sees the anthropomorphic school drama return for its third and final season, with Studio Orange continuing the adaptation. And a fun little fact about this series, if you don't know, the creator of Beastars is the daughter of the Baki creator, so there you go. Next category of shows I'm going to talk about are the Wait and Sees, so I'm going to see what the consensus is after a couple of episodes, and then decide if I'm going to watch or not. And kicking off this, we're going to start with Magalume Magical Girls Incorporated. Probably butchered that. I'm going to continue. So it's a Shonen Jump Plus manga adaptation, and it's a workplace comedy that follows a college grad struggling to get a job, and then she finally lands one. The only problem, it's a bit unusual, as it's a startup that creates magical girls. 2 studios seem to be working on it, which is JC Staff and Studio Moe. Next, we see an anime remake, and it's one of a classic series by Rumiko Takahashi, whose other works include Urusei Yatsura, which has also been getting a remake recently, and that series is Ranma Half. And it's an action rom-com which follows an arranged marriage between 2 martial arts families. The boring girls seem to butt heads at first, however the most important thing to note for the series is that the titular Ranma gets turned into a girl whenever he touches water. MAPPA is given the task of handling the remake, so we're probably going to get some good action out of this, and it's going to be interesting to see how the show ages since it's originally from the 80s. Next, we have an original anime series which tend to be a bit more rare, and that is NegaPosi Angler. It follows a college student named Sasaki who's brain with debt and told he only has a couple years to live due to a medical condition or illness that he suffers with. When escaping debt collectors, he is saved by his friends Hana and Takaki, who hook him into their passion of fishing. Studio Net is going to be the one animating it, and I think there's some potential to the series, so I'm going to hope it turns out okay and then start watching it. Now is going to be one of the weirder premises to explain. So the gist of this one is it follows a dude and his wife unfortunately dies, and it makes him a shell of himself and he becomes estranged with his daughter due to the grief. 10 years pass, and as he goes to answer the door, he has a weird interaction. as like a 10-year-old girl shows up at the door, and she claims to be the reincarnation of his dead wife. Must have been a fun conversation. And that is essentially the plot of If My Wife Becomes an Elementary School Student. I want to know how this show turns out, because I believe this could either be a car crash or genuinely heartbreaking and touching. The manga has decent reviews on Mal. We're going to see how it goes. Studio signposts are the ones animating, who I've also never heard of, so hopefully it's no production problems, but we shall see what happens. Next we have an adaptation of a crime syndicate romance manga, and that is Yakuza Fiance. The show follows two syndicates that are merging, with the stipulation being that two of the grandchildren have to get married as part of the contract. So with this, Yoshino is forced to move to Tokyo with Kirishima and the Miyama group, and she has to adapt to her new surroundings and life that follows with this. Studio Dean is taking control of the show, hopefully it turns out alright. Next up we see more of a comedy series in You Are Miss Servant. Yokoya is a student living alone, and then a random girl just turns up to his door, offering to be his maid. However, that is not all. She is actually an ex-assassin, and because of this, Yokoya hesitantly agrees to hire her after she saves his life. However, the girl has absolutely zero household skills, since most of her focus grant was killing people, being an assassin and all. The show is going to be animated by Felix Film, and it shows them living together as the mysterious new maid tries to move past her tragic past. Now it's time for the big one. The shows I'll be watching from the absolute second episode 1 drops, and you should be too. And to kick off the list, we have Uzumaki, which is often considered the best work of legendary horror mangaka Junji Ito. I don't know much about his works, including this one, except that spirals are the focus of the horror in it. It's a partnership with Adult Swim, and it's only going to last 4 episodes, and Studio Driver's taking it home. The previous adaptations of Junji Ito work have not been good with the Junji Ito collections, however the art style looks so good for this, I'm hoping it turns out amazing, and I think it will. Next, we have the biggest Shonen Jump property airing this season, and that is Dandadan. The basic premise, we see 2 high school students, one who believes in aliens, and the other who believes in spirits, and then make a bet to the other that the other is wrong about what they believe in. Pairs show up to a separate sketchy location, and it turns out both are true, and after saving each other and unlocking some new powers, the pair will have to deal with different supernatural beings heading their way. I am fully caught up on this manga, I read it weekly, and it's amazing. It's from a former Chainsaw Man assistant, and it shows. I highly recommend reading it. If you want to watch it first, I get that, but please jump on the series, it's so good. Science Haru is in charge, which is another great addition, an amazing studio, and I think the show will be amazing as well. The third and final must-watch show of the season for me is Blue Box. It's another Shonen Jump series that I'm fully caught up on, and it's simultaneously the most popular romance series and sports series currently in Weekly Shonen Jump. In it, we see a badminton player, Inomata, enter high school, and he has a crush on the star of the basketball team, Chinatsu. Inomata always thinks his feelings will go unrecognized for Chinatsu, especially after hearing that she's going to be moving away. However, in a turn of events, Chinatsu starts living at his house for a period of time. As I mentioned earlier, I've read every chapter of the series, and it's really good. The sports and romance is blended very well together, and the characters are great as well. Telecom Animation Film is in charge of the animation, and I think the show will be very, very good. And with that, these are all the upcoming anime you should be keeping an eye out for. If your most anticipated show was not mentioned, that's okay. There are only so many I could talk about, but comment any I did not mention. If you want to see every show airing, the Mal link is in the description. With all that said, thanks for watching, and Ptok out.